If you saw a 325 in the 80s, you knew that you were looking at something special. In this video, I want to find out how BMW was able to lift the 3 Series so far above the perceptions of more mundane offerings from the likes of Ford, Vauxhall and even Alfa. You might think you already know the answer, but I think at least some of you will be surprised by what I have to say. Three things came together to ensure the E30's success. Quality and engineering are the first two, but the third you probably hadn't thought of. We'll come back to that in a moment, but first, let's talk about just how successful it was. BMW built 2.4 million E30's. That's nearly double the production run of the previous 3 Series, the E21, and almost the same as the mass market Ford Sierra with 2.7 million. But here's the kicker. BMW made far more profit per unit. In fact, the money that they made allowed BMW to invest and expand into the behemoth that it is today. Not bad for a company that was almost bankrupt in the 60s. So what made it so good? Quality played a big part. The E30 was simply better made than its rivals, with better quality materials used throughout. And it was also designed with the help of CAD, computer-aided design, to ensure refinement and precision. Next was the depth of engineering. Even though it looked like a subtle evolution of the E21, virtually nothing was carried over bar some of the engines. Handling was safer and more predictable. The driving position was improved, and crucially, BMW stuck with rear-wheel drive, whereas other manufacturers went to front-wheel drive to cut costs. The engine choice was vast, but what you really wanted was the M20 straight sixes like this one. Here, in 2-litre form, it puts out 130 horsepower. Of course, the real prize was the 2.5 litre, which put out 170 horsepower, way above what Ford or Vauxhall could offer. And that brings us to the third factor, marketing. And to me, that's at least as important as the other two. BMW had already honed its image in the 70s, but by the time of the E30's, they were masters of the game. There were the engines. Dropping large 6 cylinders into a compact car gave it a class and appeal that most of its rivals couldn't touch. And that was particularly important in the US market. Yes, Ford offered a V6 in the Sierra, but the Ford engine couldn't compete with BMW's straight sixes, and the front drive layout meant that it couldn't be used to its full potential. Then there was the pricing. The 3 Series was reassuringly expensive. And yet, BMW were clever. Almost everything was optional. Sunroof, alloy wheels, even the radio, and on early cars, the power steering as well. This allowed BMW to price the cars competitively without eating into their profit margins. The body styles also helped to broaden the appeal. 2-door, convertible, and for the first time, 4-door and estate. Let's take it out now and find out if the hype lives up to the reality, and we'll take a quick look at the classifieds as well and see what's on the market right now. A couple of things just before we set off. Everything on this car may have been optional, but you can tell the attention to detail that they put into it, from things like the key. Press the button and you've got a little light so that in the evenings you could see the keyhole for the door. Then when you open the glove box, there is the famous BMW light. This car is incredible. I'll talk to you more about it in a minute, the condition of it, but obviously he's refurbished that because it had all gone rotten and he's sorted that out. But there are lots of little things that show they didn't bother with the frivolous stuff, but everything that mattered, they did. The straight sixes of this era are just turbine smooth. They're amazing. This car additionally has this sort of check panel, which was something that was quite trendy and in the 80s to make it look like cars were advanced. But let's set off. I'll tell you a bit more about this particular car. Now, it has just 18,000 miles on it. so lucky for me to be able to get something which is so utterly completely original and in such incredible condition. Paul, who owns it, had bought it at auction about a year and a half ago, I think, and he's had to do a lot of work recommissioning it. And the attention to detail that he himself has gone to is really pretty staggering, because there's things like the front lights. I didn't know this, but the heights of them was hydraulically adjustable. It was a Heller system, and it fails on all of these. And he took a system from a later BMW, an electric system, and he converted it to be used on this, and also to be used with the original switch, which was meant for a hydraulic system. There's so much more that he's done that I won't go into, but you can tell that the condition is absolutely spectacular. And even at these slow speeds, it drives so well. It feels drum tight, absolutely lovely. And I mean, if you went into a showroom and you saw a car like this, you really wouldn't be surprised, you know, if it was new. It's just so good. Of course, the materials, the quality of the build was so good in those days that these tend to last a bit better than a lot of their competitors anyway. But they do suffer quite badly from rust. This one, because it's so low mileage and it's been kept garaged all this time, apart from the recommissioning, it hasn't really needed that much. What it has, and what I love about it, is this dash is practically perfect. The ergonomics, the layout of the instruments there, you couldn't ask for anything better. This is one of the cars of the BMW era that started with the driver facing focus, and it feels just right. Everything is just set up so well. The heating controls are all in one line here. They're really easy to use. I mean, much easier than you would have in a modern car. And things like in the upper end versions, you would have had a trip computer there, but you have that so simple BMW clock. I even love that. Now this one has cloth, which would have been, I guess leather would have been a nicer thing and would have lifted the ambience a little bit, but in truth, cloth, especially the stuff that the Germans used at this time, is very hard wearing. It's cooler in summer, it's warmer in winter, it holds you better. It's really a better option than leather. But let's see if maybe this 2 litre is lacking a little bit in ultimate power. Let's take it through the gears. It's actually slightly better than I thought. 130 horsepower doesn't sound like a lot, but because it's such a progressive unit and it keeps on gathering pace as it goes up through the rev range, it gives you a good enough feeling that the car is working towards what you want. But it really comes alive above 4,000 RPM. The tone hardens and it just starts going towards the red line with added vigor. There's enough power there on a road like this that you're going to be able to enjoy it, to have fun. You're not going to feel too shortchanged. Of course, an extra 40 horsepower would be very welcome, but this isn't bad. I think at 320 I would be happy with. All the control weights are great. Turn it in, and one of the criticisms I've always had for BMWs of almost any era is that the steering isn't great. I have to say on this, I think it's worm and roller. It's lacking a little bit in precision, but the weighing and the fact that it's so linear means that it kind of gets away with it. It's not the most feelsome system, it's not the most precise system, and I think it's maybe the area in the car that, I wouldn't say lets it down, but it's the weakest point in this car because everything else is so good. The gear change is the typical BMW gear change that you get in all these cars. It's light. It's got a little bit of notchiness, but not enough to get in the way, just enough so that you know that it's a BMW gear change of this era. The suspension is really comfortable, but you've got that rear-wheel drive layout, which means that the handling is above what you would get in a similar car of this time. For a 2 litre, it's quite torquey as well, and it's turbine smooth. Chuck it in second gear here. I mean, it is quite soft, it does lean quite a bit, but the main thing that you'll notice is in those tight corners, going like that with a Sierra or any other sort of mass market type car of the time, and eventually it would just understeer, this kept such a neutral attitude Apparently in the rain they can be a little bit tricky, but certainly in the dry, that rear-wheel drive chassis is just awesome. Let's take it through the gears one more time. These engines really are special. One thing when you're going quicker becomes apparent is that the brakes aren't the best. But I was surprised to see that this still has rear drums. Maybe the 325 came with discs all round. I'm sure that the 325 Sports did. But brakes don't feel the best. Not the most feelsome. There's quite a lot of travel in the pedal. Not terrible, but again with the steering, probably the weakest point of this car. I'm sure some of you will bring up the likes of Alfa. After all, with the 75, which was a competitor for this, they did make a bigger engine 3-litre version, and it was a legendary engine, the Busso, which is definitely a measure of this inline 6. So is that where my argument falls apart? Because the 75 was also rear-wheel drive. But unfortunately, it wasn't the complete package in the same way that this was. In 3 areas, I think. In handling terms, yes it is. I mean, it's great. But when it comes to ergonomics and quality, that car really falls down. It's a car which you can love, but you have to work around its needs. But also, in terms of looks, well, some of us love 75s, despite the fact that they are weird looking things. You can't compare it to the 3 Series. The 3 Series is such a perfect design. It's such a pretty little car. I mean, don't forget, it wasn't supposed to be an out-and-out sports car or a coupe or anything super pretty, and yet it's so right. That front grille design is iconic. It always will be. And the proportions of it, if you look at it from the side, it's just so right. Now compare that to a 75, and I mean, there is a front 3/4 is probably the breast angle for the 75, but everything else, it's just a bizarre thing. Now, as a classic, that has its own appeal, but back in the day, I could see why people would rather get one of these. If you wanted to buy one now, it's not good news, I'm afraid, because you're really going to struggle to find the right car at the right price. I had a quick look last night, so let's just see what's around right now. Now, when you first look, it seems quite promising because you've got 75 cars listed, but then as you start to go through, you'll see what happens. The first is a convertible, the second has the right engine, 325, but it's an automatic, another convertible. This is the right kind of car, but A, it looks modified, POA, I wouldn't touch it personally. Then we have a saloon manual, white low miles. That sounds pretty good, not the best colour, but £28,000. Then another convertible, then a race car, then an automatic. M3s, Z1s, ignore those. Convertible, no. Here we get to the first car that could be suitable. This is a 320i, 80,000 miles. It is a manual and 14,500. So, you know, as you look further, that's a full pot 316. Would want to avoid that personally. 325 for 9,000. I think that's a touring. That probably would need work. Then again. So as you can see, finding one of these at the right spec and manual with a 6-cylinder engine is no easy task. Now, Paul, who recommissioned this one, he's keen to move on to another project. He's happy to keep this car, but he said if he gets it has to be a really good offer, then he will consider it. I'll put his email address in the video description. Thank you so much, and see you for the next video.